Hey everyone, I'm starting listening to intuitive eating today, and I thought I'll take you along and tell you what I think about the book. I want to listen to this book because I have always been an advocate for listening to your body when it comes to eating, and it knows what it wants. But in recent years, I've kind of lost touch with my body, meaning I have had life changes in the form that I'm working 9 to 5 now, and somehow this 9 to 5 work doesn't really suit my eating habits or the time when I want to eat and what to eat and how to prepare food and all those things. I can't really make that work well. Another thing is that I go through phases in my 40s and maybe late 30s that I lose appetite. I don't feel like eating at all. I have no interest in food and I don't know what to eat then. So it's hard to listen to your body when your body says, we just want chocolate because that's always good. And so I kind of lost the habit or the skill to listen to my body when it comes to eating. And I basically came across this book in Eating for Marathon Training. It's not that I was looking into eating for marathon training, it just happened. And I noticed that on my longer runs or on the days that I have long runs, I am not hungry. I'm less hungry than on other days. And in that podcast that I listened to, they mentioned that that is a typical thing. And especially when you're training for marathon, you need to be aware of what your body needs. And sometimes self-care eating is something too. And so I thought maybe that book will help me get back in touch of what I need to eat and how I need to listen to my body. And I also have to mention that I don't really like cooking, and the pandemic has made cooking much more necessary than before. And I spend too much time thinking about what can I eat that it fulfills nutritional needs instead of what do I want or what do I like. So I don't know. I'm not particularly a fan of eating right now, and it's kind of hard when you're doing a lot of exercise. I'm working standing all day, and I think I should eat more and differently, but I don't really know how and what, and then I'm, too tired. So, hoping that book will help me there. I'll let you know as I go along. Back from running. So far I listened to the introduction to the 4th edition. This book was first published in 1995, but now there's a 4th edition and there have been some changes made. The book introduction addresses the idea why they wrote the book, the studies that they had in the past and that they have now, the changes that they have made to the original book and also to their original research and way of dealing with the things. I like that they said they omitted numbers, that they talk about weight stigma and diet culture. The first chapters all talk about the studies that underlie the research that went into this idea of intuitive eating back in 1995, but also how many studies have been made so far on the idea of intuitive eating and in general on diet culture and the effect dieting or even monitoring food and numbers and macros have on our intuitive eating. There's a name for it, I forgot. They somehow measure how well you are at intuitive eating and the effects that has on your health. I like that they address weight stigma and the effect that diet culture has on eating disorders and this false dichotomy, is that the right word, between thin and health. They're clearly saying that intuitive eating may cause weight loss, but it's not the goal. They say that it's not a diet and that it's not you can eat whatever you want. I am looking forward to more of what's going to come here, but so far I like the way they talk about food and eating and dieting, and also that they mentioned that intuitive eating can be considered a privilege or luxury, as not everybody is able to do that due to food shortage and other things. Highly enjoying it so far. Now that was not a nice chapter. What kind of eater are you? And it's looking at how we eat and to make us think what type of dieter or not dieter or eater we are. And I am an unconscious dieter apparently, because even though I haven't been on a diet for ages and I rarely feel guilty about the food I eat, I am very conscious that I shouldn't fill up my calorie needs with chocolate all the time. And I have a lot of food rules that I probably gained through my life of being aware of food and nutrition and macros and diets and other things. And I would consider myself an intermittent fasted eater generally, because I like to eat later in the day, and yeah, I eat less hours than usual people do, apparently, because I start later with eating, and I don't eat as late in the evening anymore as I used to when I work differently. But anyways, I'm thinking about food and nutrition a lot, and they were like, nope, that's not an intuitive eater. So I'm happy to learn how not to do that anymore, because I am very aware that that is probably where some of the issues I have with eating are concerned. That when I'm eating food, I am always worrying about getting nutrition in, because I'm not eating enough food. I'm an undereater. I'm bad at regular check-ins. I finished the book this morning and I forgot to check in with you on a regular basis. So the next few chapters that happened after the last time we talked were all about the 10 principles that intuitive eating is based upon. And although they were very interesting and helpful, I think they present different challenges for different people. And for me, I definitely see how honor your hunger is one of my bigger points that I'm bad at. I am good at ignoring hunger, or I don't get hungry at all. And that doesn't help me in eating properly or being an intuitive eater or listen to my body or whatever. Other people may have different challenges. They go into each of those principles at length, which was very nice, and they give examples on how to deal with that, which is also helpful. But overall, I think with this book alone, or this idea of the principles, it's not enough. You need more guidelines or more help, depending on how much help you need with each principle. The next section after the principles was on raising an intuitive eater. I must admit I didn't listen closely because I'm not a parent, but what I noticed is that I definitely benefited from growing up without food restrictions and food insecurity. I can see that when I compare myself to friends who have a much more problematic diet history than I have. The last chapter of the book focused on eating disorders and how intuitive eating can help there. I thought it was interesting. What I really liked is how they kept mentioning throughout the book that if you can't do this alone, or they basically never say if you can't do this alone, but they often recommend getting help, especially if you have an eating disorder or a really problematic relationship with food, that a professional help is necessary and helpful. But they also point out that you need to make sure that you have good professional help and qualified professional help, as there's one example where they mention how someone who wasn't really that qualified actually made things worse. I thought all of that was very informative, very well presented, and easy to listen to. The appendixes sum up some questions, frequently asked questions, and also a summary of the 10 principles and what to do. I think overall, the book was very interesting. I think the idea of intuitive eating is definitely the thing to go for, because as it repeatedly says, it's not rules, it's not guidelines, it's not a diet. It is more of principles to follow, but not strictly and restrictive. And they also mention how people tend to or look for turning it into a rule or guided diet form, and they try to work against that. I thought all of that was interesting. The thing that I come away with, though, is that I went into this book trying to figure out how I can get a better relationship at eating when I'm not hungry without going to calorie counting, nutrition counting, and focusing on what I eat too much. And unfortunately, their help there is not helpful, as it's hunger cues and satiety cues. And the problem is I am not hungry, but I should eat. And yeah, then the idea to follow nutritional guidelines, which they also say is a form of diet, is what I only know. So I'm glad I read the book. I could recommend it to anyone who's struggling with eating and food issues and wants to get a better relationship with their food intake. it can be triggering, of course. It's talking about food and eating disorders. So if you have any of those issues where you know you can be triggered, be warned, that definitely is there. But I think that's also obvious in a book about food and eating. Yeah. Anyways, let me know if you have read the book, if you are interested in it, or any other ideas you have. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.